This type of American cowboy style of attacking country and hijacking the president and his wife has already prompted many countries to take extra precautions. America is working with Israel on a smaller nuclear weapons that they can use it in certain country where it does not fall on their line. And Iran is one of the country, one of the candidate that American will use it against the Iranian if it happened that they will never hesitate of using a small nuclear device. It is the Iranian nuclear ambition. It's the Iranian ballistic missile technology and the programs. That's what worries not the American, actually. It worries the Israelis. Whenever they wanted a regime change, they can start this policy of applying sanction on the country, destroying the infrastructure, destroying the middle class people, and then go and invade or let the people create a chaotic situation. Name it in Bangladesh, Syria, Lebanon, every country they have been into it, they have done the same thing. If Israeli or the American think of attacking Iran by any chance, Iranian are already preparing and they're manufacturing, they're producing enough ballistic missile this time to hit all over Israel and all the American forces presence in the region. If the Arab fail to support Hamas, why they should support Iran?
Hello and a very warm welcome to all. You're watching Hindustan Times and my name is Aayesha Varma. On this segment of HT Podcast, the focus is on Iran. Sharp depreciation, angry citizens, threats of escalation. We now have Dr. Waiel Awwad, a senior international journalist and political analyst, joining us to discuss this. Sir, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
You know, amid an economic downturn, Iran has warned that it may carry out a preemptive strike against its adversaries. How much of this statement is born out of the current fear rippling through the world after the capture of Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro?
Oh, I think it has an impact, definitely. The unilateralism and exceptionalism of the American foreign policy have created chaos all over the world. That, it's a direct attack on the international law and also on the UN Charter. So this type of American cowboy style of attacking country and hijacking the president and his wife has already prompted many countries to take extra precaution of such kind of an action by the American. However, in the case of Iran, we know that this is not Venezuela, and Iran already have a very strong military and security apparatus. So the American were unable to penetrate even with the Israelis and the American attack last year on the Iranian. But I feel that the way they are trying to bring the regime down in Iran is only through the internal turmoil rather than doing it from the outside.
I'm curious, after the kidnapping of Maduro, there has been speculation about who could be next. One of the names has, of course, been Khamenei. Is Iran trying to say that Khamenei won't be next? And do you think it's even a possibility at this point?
Absolutely not. I don't think the Americans are interested. You see, when they took Maduro and his wife, they kept the structure of the government intact. In fact, they did not topple the regime. They did not destroy. In the case of the Iran, it is the Iranian nuclear ambition. It's the Iranian ballistic missile technology and the programs. That's what worries not the American, actually. It worries the Israelis. And that's why Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, when he went and met with President Trump, he put it on the table, the options of attacking Iran, and the American president gave him the nod, according to Israelis newspapers, that not only that he's going to take on the south of Lebanon, on the Hezbollah, which is considered to be a pro-Iranian forces, but also to reoccupy the south of Lebanon at one stage, and the second stage is to weaken and dismantle Hezbollah, which will provoke the Iranian. And then the Iranian program was very much the big target on this. So destroying of Iran infrastructure, the government, the ballistic missile technology, killing the scientists, similar fashion they have done in Iraq, they wanted to repeat it in Iran. So therefore, Iranian is not a personal attack. It's mainly of the country to be destroyed.
So, part of the statement that was released by Iran was whoever attacks must be attacked in kind. Is this enough of a deterrent for the Israel of today?
Well, absolutely. I think who is calling the shot in the Middle East is Israel. It is the American, the brat or the spoiled child that everybody except anybody can do anything, the American or the Israeli, and no international law can stop them, no forces can stop them. So therefore, they feel like they are the next pharaoh in the region that they can do without any punishment. So the Israelis very much on the card. See, the doctrine of Israel have changed after the Hamas attack and after the 7th of October, and they have changed it now into dismantling all the military forces surrounding Israel, including Iran, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. So therefore, that is the doctrine of Israeli, which used to be the preemptive strike on all these countries. Now Iran also changed it as a doctrine, the war doctrine, from a strategic patience of dealing with the regional issues to also a preemptive kind of a strike where they feel that their extensional existence is at risk, that they can take that step similar to the American or to the Israeli.
So, do you think that Iran's economy could recover if they preemptively enter into another conflict? Can Iran even sustain a prolonged conflict in the face of a declining economy?
Well, Iranians have been facing it. It is not new, actually. Iranians have been facing the American sanction ever since 2006, when they have imposed through the UN sanction on Iran in 2015. They have some reprievement when they signed the nuclear deal with the 5+1, including the American that time. But then when President Trump came back to power first tenure, he revoked that agreement, international agreement, and he immediately put Iran under a unilateral sanction by the American. And the Iranian oil have been affected badly because Iran depended on the oil. So therefore, the economic situation in Iran is grave, is very much affecting the normal person ever since the 20th. Similar fashion they did, I always bring Iraq in the replica, because what your American plan here is, and the Western plan actually, is to destroy the middle class first, create a chaos in the regions, create resentment against the regime, find your black moles inside the country, and then topple the regime and destabilize the region. So Iran already knows that this is the impact. And the Iranian president and the Ayatollah Khamenei, he was saying that there is a genuine demand for the public. We don't say no. Yes, there is inflation, there is harsh time on the people. But if there is a foreign intervention, which is the American and the Israeli publicly saying that they are supporting the demonstration in the street of Iran, like they did in Syria, in fact, when the demonstration took part in Syria, the American ambassador and the French ambassador was walking with the demonstrators in Damascus 2011. It is also against the Geneva Convention. So whenever they wanted a regime change, they can start this policy of applying sanction on the country, destroying the infrastructure, destroying the middle class people, and then go and invade or let the people create a chaotic situation. Name it in Bangladesh, Syria, Lebanon, every country they have been into it, they have done the same thing. These are covert operation has been carried out. America doesn't hide it. For more than 80 countries, they have intervened. And I don't think now President Trump, the only advantage of President Trump that he's publicly saying it.
If another confrontation breaks out, and this is more speculative, what kind of war do you think is more likely? Do you think we would see short, sharp strikes, or is a drawn-out war of attrition through proxies more likely?
No, I don't think so. The American will risk an all-out war unless and until the main objective of occupying Venezuela is to ensure their oil supply, and that oil could be, despite the fact that America is the largest exporter and producer of oil in the world, but what will happen here, the stakeholders will have the great impact on India, on China, on South Korea, on Japan, who are relying very much on the oil from the Middle East. So therefore, if Strait of Hormuz close, if the Red Sea close, then you are 14% of the global trade, and oil export will have a great impact on these countries. The United States is thousands of miles away, does not have that impact on it. So I think that is one of my objectives of Make America Great Again, is create more war zone in the world, and then let the world suffer, and American build up their strength again. So I think this time, even if Israeli or the American think of attacking Iran by any chance, Iranians are already preparing and they're manufacturing, they're producing enough ballistic missile this time to hit all over Israel and all the American forces presence in the region. So it's not going to be a small kind of an act of war, but it's going to be an all-out war, and I think the region will be in turmoil.
Okay. So, speaking of that, then, how dependent is Iran on its regional networks like Hezbollah, Houthis, Iraqi and Syrian militias to essentially sustain pressure on Israel and the US, given its own economic constraints?
I don't think Iranian have really relayed much on the proxies, if you name it, as the world say, whether Hezbollah, whether it is the Houthis, whether it is the Hamas. They have never relayed them. Can you give me one example where these forces have really retaliated or came to the support of the Iranian? No, they have not come to the support of Iranian. So Iran have learned it the hard way that the only way of defending itself is to promote and strengthen itself from within and have those technology that can beat not only the American and the Western technology, even the Israeli technology. Remember, this 12 days of attack, Iranian were able to hit hard inside Israel and precisely at the target where they have intention of doing it, despite the fact that the whole dome, the Iron Dome, the American, the French, the British, the German, all of them have used it from the Persian Gulf into the Mediterranean, failed of stopping the Iranian attack. So Iran is not a small country. They know they have the power. They know they can close the Strait of Hormuz. They know they can close even the Red Sea without having their proxies, because the United States, we all know that the whole crisis happening in Yemen or in Djibouti, it's a question of closing the global trade passage, where the American will have a control, and closing the tap not only on the regional power, but only on the power that competing with the United States, namely the Chinese and the Russia.
I'm curious, what you just mentioned, would the Red Sea attacks, which have been levied by the Houthis, not be an example of how they have stood with Iran?
Well, the Houthis, they are Ansarullah, they are a part of the government of Yemen. They have been
Hmm.
existing for centuries, even
Hmm.
before Iran came to existence. The Yemen 1990s, intervention in Yemen by the Iranian government. The Yemeni Houthis were part of the government till 1990s, when they have a reconciliation between the south and the north, and it was a united government. Then there was a war created on the Houthis by the Saudi Arabia and the Emirates with the led coalition to attack them since 2015, because they were expanding and they thought that they have been violating the deal with them. So Houthis definitely are a pro-Iranian forces to reckon with,
Hmm.
no doubt about it. They have already taken
Hmm.
part on the war by Israel on Gaza, where they have attack the Israelis' interest even in the Red Sea, or directly into ballistic missile into Israel to stop the Israeli attack and onslaught on the Palestinian. They have gained popularity now. Even many of the Yemenis feel right now, after the current situation in Yemen, we can watch that there is an imperative requirement to stop the hegemony and the attack on onslaught on the Palestinian in the region, rather than thinking of Iran. Nobody is, according to my own assessment, thinking of Iran as an entity that the whole Arab world should support or give. If the Arab fail to support Hamas, why they should support Iran?
How much of an impact did the 12-day war with Israel and then the United States have on Iran? And in concrete terms, how degraded is Iran's conventional and missile capability after the war? How quickly can it regenerate those assets?
Well, no doubt about it. I believe that the American, with their might, and with the Israeli also using their technology and know-how and the intelligence input in Iran, they had a great impact on the Iranian ballistic missile technology and programs, and also on their nuclear side for the civil use. Therefore, these two have a great negative impact on the Iranian production. Over the months, ever since the attack 6 months ago, now we could see that the Iranians are able to rebuild their structure, at least in the infrastructure of the ballistic missile technology and production. They were able to produce, 50 to 100 rockets in a month. So therefore, that pattern has been increasing. According to the Iranian, could go to 1,000, which is unlikely. But according to the intelligence input from the United States and Israel, they are still lacking behind. So America have already threatened, and I think the warning from Netanyahu that he has carried out to the President Trump, that the Iranian ballistic missile is the first target for the American and the Israeli, and not the nuclear. And we all know, because having the technology in the region, you can still threaten Israel, because Israel is willing to expand at the cost of the neighbors to create what is known as the Greater Israel, from the Euphrates to Nile, including Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and Sinai Peninsula, one third of Saudi Arabia, and also the Iraq. So all that region, if you want to expand at the cost of the people, Iran will not sit quiet. So therefore, they have to destroy, as I said, the infrastructure of the military strength of any Arab countries or any West Asian nation like Iran in this part of the world. So Israel can continue with the support of the United States to have the hegemony in the region and to be the militarily, politically, and economically the only allies and the strong country that allies with the Western world and the United States in particular. So I think the Iranian understand this, and that's why I said their doctrines of war have changed from the strategic patience of not attacking or waiting till somebody attacks and then retaliate, to preemptive strike, where they think that their extensional existence is at risk, and they can do it for the American and for the Israeli. And that is why the whole phobia now and the stream and the trends in the media talking of an imminent war in the region.
So let's say Iran does strike Israel. The United States has stepped in with their own B-2 bombers in the past. We know that the nuclear sites were the target. Sticking with that trend, America could and will likely step in once again to defend its ally. Why risk this sort of situation? In an earlier response, you stated that America won't risk a larger war, but why would Iran?
Look, if you look at the commonality between the United States and Iran, you will come to know that the American interest in the region has been protected over the years till the Khomeini came 1979 by the Iranian, and it was America who made Iran militarily strong to control as a watchdog of their Persian Gulf and the countries and the Arab country and the Gulf countries under their umbrella of the American interest. However, 1979, after they toppled the regime and brought Khomeini into power, the Americans have lost control on the Iranian. Does not give American the intention not to establish itself in that part of the world. So Iran understands that this regime is not supported by the American and the Israeli, and it has to go. So if that goes, the American will know that they will have their boots on the ground in Iran. Similarly, what they are doing in Iraq and in Venezuela, you don't need to be part of the what we call a boat on the ground. What you require now is to control the oil, bring them back to sell the oil in the dollars, and don't do the de-dollarization. These are the issues where we need to understand the American intention. You remember when American president went into hijack the president of Venezuela, he didn't talk about cocaine, which is 1% of the cocaine, the drug trafficking from Venezuela to Iran, to America. Honduras drug dealer was released by the American, by the way, even for this before the attack. But immediately they spoke of the oil. So if we understand, and we are not naive in the international, observers, we should understand the intention is oil, and then oil.
So, how worried should the world be after Iran's statement, and how high is the risk of a nuclear weapon being used?
Well, American will definitely have been. I've been saying it, and for years that America is working with Israel on a smaller nuclear weapons that they can use it in certain country where it does not fall on their line. And Iran is one of the candidates that American will use it against the Iranian if it happened that they will never hesitate of using a small nuclear device against Iran.
Okay. So then, given that, are there any existing crisis management channels between Washington, Tehran, and other regional capitals which are sufficient to prevent accidents or miscalculations from spiraling into a nuclear crisis?
Well, I think the American understand that this is, you may be staying thousands of miles away, but they have the back diplomacy channels they opened with their allies in the region like Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and they have been approaching the Iranian for a kind of reconciliation and not an all-out war. because United States having more than 70,000 Marines in the region, by the way, and all these military bases that they have created in the Gulf will be an easy target for the Iranian missiles, and therefore the United States will not risk any kind of an attack, because the retaliatory attack from the Iran will have a great impact, not only on the American lives, but also in the American president, who may be advocating on, he feels that macho has giving him that cowboy feeling that he can go anywhere and attack any country, because America is not following its interest in the region, by the way. And I again come back to this point. It is just doing what Israeli wanted them to do in the West Asian affairs.
I'm curious, how are Gulf states and other regional players reading Iran's preemptive strike warning? Do they see it as posturing and optics or a genuine shift in doctrine?
I think it's a genuine shift in the doctrine. It's also a
Hmm.
message to the Arab countries, especially those who are hosting American Marines, that should be careful not to use or allow any of the American missiles be fired from these parts against Iran, because they will be targeted by all means by the Iranians.
All right, sir, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your perspective on what's taking place here.
Thank you.